change channels here. Okay, we're gonna boot up our computer. There we go. This is me learning Google Slides. All right, so chapter 3 is gonna be, sorry. There we go. Cover letters. Cover letters. Ray. What's a cover letter? Well, a cover letter is a one-page business letter that you can use in tandem with your resume when applying for a job. This is where you can better describe your experience, interests, hobbies, etc., and show how they relate to the position you're applying for. Basically, all the stuff we were talking about earlier. Wait, you don't like Windows 98? Come on, man. This is great. Where we were like, hey, don't put quotes on here, don't say I love video games and play them a lot. This is where that goes. This is where you're going to inject personality. The basic idea is if your resume is being read off by a computer, your cover letter is being read off by you when you're a little too excited. This is also where you put information you want the potential employer to know, but it doesn't have a place in a resume. It's an opportunity to tell a story and give context. Just ignore that we aren't actually on a website URL here. Just use your imagination. Use the cover letter to sell yourself to your employer or potential employer, big difference, in hopes to stand out and add personality to the sterile resume process. Express your motivation and your knowledge surrounding the desired position. Now, this is kind of a fast and loose, approach, but you do, again, want to be intentional here. Don't just say whatever. Your goal is to kind of wrap up your motivation and knowledge with your personality, not just be like, I love video games and that's all I'm going to say. And it's a bit of a balance, which we'll get into. You want to add personality, right? We did it, fam. A cover letter is meant to complement your resume and not be a Xerox of it. Elaborate, don't just repeat. I've seen a lot of cover letters that really are just kind of like they went through their resume and read it and rewrote it. That's not really what you want. Keep it to one page. Generally, you want 3 to 4 paragraphs if you can manage. Keep it single spaced and keep the font around 10 to 12 point. Use the same ATS friendly font you used in your resume. Really, it does help if you choose a font and you just kind of use it across both. Honestly, that's the best way to go, so it keeps it simple. And do keep it to one page. There are examples of not doing this that have worked, but we'll get into this. It is optional, quote unquote, but always recommended. And if it's asked for, that is code for mandatory. If it ever says you can provide a cover letter or it gives you a space for one, write that cover letter, provide that cover letter. Because if you don't, everyone else will, and you're out of the running. Honestly, just include one. However, if a place specifically mentions to not submit one, then don't submit one. Always follow the rules, okay? Anything we're saying here is superseded by anything that's mentioned on the hiring website or that a hiring manager, which we'll talk about those later, mentions to you. This is not a chance to be cute and do it anyway. That would just tell them that you don't follow instructions well, okay? Use the same file format in your submission that you used for your resume. Show enthusiasm and be positive. Your goal is to show your passion in what you're speaking about. This is kind of what I said before I started this talk, where I'm going to go between talking casually and then kind of almost sounding like I'm a company man. I mean, it's information that's usable, and the goal here is to get you into the industry or maintain in the industry. So this is just how it is. Okay. Try this. Show your interest and excitement, but don't go into dangerous over-the-top fanboy territory. It is a delicate balance. Sometimes people just straight up are like, I dreamed of nothing more than to be here. I love you. I'm obsessed. This is so great. All I ever want, blah, blah, blah. And they don't really get into actual knowledge and experience and relevant, intent. And then it just sounds like you're a crazy person. And then the worry becomes, are they so obsessed with the product that they won't be able to separate themselves from it and objectively work on it? It's good to show you're a fan of the company and their work. However, it's best to be passionate about your work and what you do. And that's the thing, right? If you're like, I want to go work at Blizzard. You're like, oh, I love Blizzard. I grew up with Blizzard games. Then you want to kind of talk about how passionate you are about making games, how passionate you are about the art that you work on and how it relates to games, rather than only being passionate about doing Blizzard specific work. Avoid detracting statements like, I'm far better at this than anyone else would be. Focused on your experience and not others. That's a big thing. You want your cover letter to be positive. Never compliment or promote yourself at the expense of someone else. I've seen cover letters that have said almost word for word, you should hire me because I'm far more passionate than anyone on your team right now. So those are the people that are looking to hire you, and you've just told them that they suck and you don't. Like, who wants to work with your ass after that? Your personality is given a chance to shine through in a cover letter, so ensure that it does. You want to show that you communicate well and aren't just a robot. Honestly, cover letters are like the hardest thing for me to write. I really hate it. I'm bad at selling myself. Um, uh, and this is one of those points where don't be afraid to ask somebody to look at it. Don't be afraid to ask somebody like, what would you do? How does this read? And refine it over time. And just like your resume, you can update these over time as well. Unless the job is to be a robot, then you can show that you can be a great robot. We got jokes. Try to come off as genuine. It can be difficult given you might not normally be writing a commercial for yourself, but if you're able to not overdo it, that's better than coming off extremely fake and ridiculously overenthused. Again, it's a hard balance. I know it's easy to say this and write this, but it's hard to do it. So, okay. Keep your cover letter to text. Don't include images, iconography, or anything super fancy. This is basically the same rules as the resume. We're just covering it again. Your cover letter needs to be scannable, ATS friendly, just like your resume. Same rules apply. You can format a general cover letter and then customize it per job, and I highly recommend doing that you apply for by cutting out irrelevant information and adding key points that relate specifically to that new position. Be wary if you do this, though. The less personalized a cover letter feels, the less likely it is to stand out and catch a hiring manager or director's eye. So basically, you don't want to end up going like a form letter that you just take out, your name here, hello company or whatever. You want to kind of have areas that you know are going to be the same, like a paragraph about how you're passionate about games or passionate about art or whatever it is. And then you want the section where you're like, I'm going to research this company a little bit and see what they're about and show that my passion aligns with that. And that's going to change from company to company. Before you write your cover letter, look into the employer and their past projects a bit to understand what they might be looking for. You can't say you're a good fit for them if you're unable to say why. And I'm laughing because a lot of people do that. They'll be like, I'm a great fit. And even in the interview, I'll be like, why are you a great fit? And they're like, because I just really feel the vibes would match, bro. And I'm like, that's not a good answer. Don't do that. Also look for what you can gather on the company culture. And there's a section on company culture, by the way. If they seem to really want to express fun and joy, lean into that in your cover letter. It's your chance to show how much you align with that culture. Do not mention or focus on what you lack. Instead, always focus on the knowledge and accomplishments you have. Don't go in and go, I know I'm not the best artist. Don't go, I haven't played a lot of games like yours, but you can always say nothing. That's one of my favorite phrases. You always could just say nothing. Don't say that. Please don't do that. Always check for grammar and spelling. It helps if you have someone else to look over it for you. Again, do this. If you have a ton of typos, misspellings, and weird grammatical errors in your resume and in your cover letter, it shows that you don't care enough about what is considered one of the most important parts of getting a job. And even though that shouldn't matter as much as it does, it will. And they will count that against your ability to communicate. Have no professional experience? You're not alone. Look for projects you've worked on or experiences you've had that still highlight the relevant skills and talk about those. This is actually where you will expand upon your freelance experience or previous jobs that you feel aren't directly related to this in a way that you can relate them, right? So if you're like, oh, I did a bunch of freelance illustration, but I'm applying for a concept job, you can be like, amongst my freelance illustrations, I was often asked to concept out or come up with ideas and execute it, and I really enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. So, those are general rules, but how would we format a cover letter? Anyone? Okay, I'll talk. Great, great question. With the power of our 14.4 BPS modem, we can find the 411 on all of that. Wow. Okay, let's load it up. Here we go. A good way to format a cover letter is the following, and this part is going to separate the old from the young. Start with a header. This is basically the same as your resume header. It's going to have your full name, email address, phone number, location, city, state, country, links to your portfolio and or LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn, but that's just an example. And again, I'll get into why at a later point. Your salutation or greeting. You want to personalize it. Be sure to address the letter to the company or team. If you know the specific information, the individual who would be hiring you, such as the hiring manager. So if you're working with a hiring manager who reaches out to you, her name is Jenny, you would address it to Jenny or hiring manager. If not, you'd be like the team, like, oh, hello, Riot concept team, or League of Legends concept team, or Gearbox Borderlands 52 illustration team. Avoid generic openers like to whom it may concern. The shorthand for this is it's a personal greeting. Make it a personal greeting. Don't be like, hi, like something a bit better. Introduction. Always state the position you're applying for here. Mention your passion for game development and games and move on to the relevant experiences or projects you've been on. So that's what you want for your introduction. You're going to give basic information about yourself, why you're interested in the position you're applying for. Do you play lots of games? That goes here. Do you love making games? That also goes here. So what you're applying for, where you're applying to, and why you're applying. And you can suss out how wordy you want to be there because cover letters don't get ATS screened. Usually. Main paragraphs or body. This is where you put everything else. It helps to begin with your experiences and interests, then move on to the skills that you can express, which would be beneficial to the team and position. You're going to notice that this is kind of similar to the resume, but like I said, you're more contextualizing and showing your passion rather than robotically listing these out. Lead with your strongest, most relevant experiences first, then elaborate on those skills in your resume. You can place fun stories that show your passion. If you worked with a team or as leadership, all of that goes here. So if you have like a cool anecdote of why you're in the industry or why you feel this job and line of work is great, you can pick one of those that you feel really kind of also in tandem expresses a skill, put that here. If you struggle with this part, it can help to simplify and look at the requirements of the job and try to nail down one achievement that you have that covers as many of those as possible and tell an anecdote about what you did or how it showed your expertise in those areas. An example of this would be mentioning proficiency with a specific program or tool that's a requirement of the position. So like, I don't know, if like Unity, if you're doing, mobile dev, then share an experience of doing so or a joyful appreciation of doing so. Boy, Unity was a piece of shit, but then I wrangled it and now it's great. No, don't do that. But seriously, like you just say like, this was a thing that I'm passionate about and I was able to leverage the situation into a win. And here's why. People in corporations love that kind of stuff. You don't need to use corporate jargon though. Put this always in your own words. Don't be overly familiar and casual, but don't be robotic. So again, it's a balance. You want to just kind of sound friendly and excited. So the shorthand is, this is where your knowledge and achievements are, story behind said achievements, and then the metric for said achievements. Tongue face. Try not to be erratic with your structure. Begin with your paragraph with a solid topic that focuses on an area of knowledge or experience, and then move out to details from there. Draw a line from those experiences to how they prepared you for the position. So, oh, well, I was working on my own indie dev project and I ended up having to solve this UI UX problem that lent me to learning this piece of software. And now I've put that in my work all the time and I really am passionate about it. And I love to employ that here because that's just one of the many things that excites me about game dev, that kind of thing. You want it to sound like if you were in the room, you were kind of like energetically telling somebody why this is exciting to you. You know what I mean? Conclusion and signature. Do a quick summary of your enthusiasm for the role. Express interest in discussing how you would contribute to the team and invite the recruiter to connect with you for an interview. That's an important one, okay? Thank the employer for their consideration and time and close it out by signing your name. Keep it professional. And avoid any cute playfulness here. No, Robert, master creator of worlds. Like, that's a big thing that I see a lot too. Like, people would be like, master of the Wacom pen. Like, don't do that, Robert. What's wrong with you? Like, that's weird. You want to keep it professional, even though you're being somewhat more casual than on a resume. So don't be weird. Don't be silly. That's such a gambit, that as many times as it's going to work for you, it'll hurt you. So just go the middle ground. Instead of a generic sincerely Jimothy closing, focus on what's referred to as a call to action. Show your enthusiasm by mentioning you appreciate their time and you welcome the opportunity to interview at their earliest convenience. Don't say, like, so let's get this interview going, right? Like, don't do that. But you do want to open the opportunity and be like, hey, I'm willing to talk further. I'm happy to discuss this further at any time. I'd love the opportunity to interview, right? Because you're not assuming you're going to get it, but you're saying you would love or appreciate if you did. So recap is appreciation, call to action, and then your signature. Pretty plain and clear, but these are some of the things that sometimes people just don't worry about. And you want to worry about it. Bonus to your signature, offer that if they have any questions or clarifications, they can reach out to you. You really want to kind of give them that opportunity that you are available, to be spoken with. You are happy to discuss at anyone's earliest convenience. Don't say anyone's, but the hiring manager, the team, whatever it is. Just balance it so that you don't sound like you're assuming it's going to happen. Okay. Thanks for visiting my homepage. If you have any questions before we move on to the next chapter, let me know. This is the Q&A section. Let's see what we got. DNA says, surely you want both optimally, if it really boiled down to it. Would you prioritize economy over personality, or is it worth the risk if your spice ends up lengthening the letter? If you feel the spice has a purpose, again, there's intention behind it, and you're not just kind of waxing philosophic for no reason, then I would always lean on adding the little bit of extra in there, because I've seen it hurt people when they economize too much, and it really just starts to lean towards the resume again. Now, something else to talk about here is there's been examples of people going like, well, I converted my resume, or my cover letter. Wow, let's start over. I converted my cover letter into like an illustration or a comic or whatever. That's, again, a big gambit. I don't recommend. One of the funniest examples to me was when I was at Blizzard, and it's like funny sad. And they were like, there was a cover letter that this person did like a 13-page comic, and they'd show this comic around multiple times when I was there. And they were like, this is an amazing example of a cover letter. This was so impactful. This was da 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 da. And then they would always end it with, we did not hire this person. And I was like, dude, fucked up. Just go with conversation. You know what I mean? Just really sell yourself as if you were talking to a buddy about how excited you are, and just make sure it's a little intentional. You're like, oh, I'm really excited about this thing, or this is why I'm really into it. You know what I mean? So feel more like how you'd talk to me here, where we kind of have a bit of rapport, but we're still professional. That's the best way to approach it. If you can get more personality into that, it's good. Just have somebody else read it so your personality doesn't end up being like an exploding bomb of confetti, which is a little much. Sometimes people can't tell if they're too much. It's good to have someone else to kind of balance that out. Minigendo says, metrics are often suggested, usually as part of SMART goals. I find it rare that day-to-day work creates mentionable metrics. Do you have any suggestions on how to identify these, or metrics one might begin to monitor for mentioning? So in cover letters, you don't have to be as specific, right? You don't have to be giving actual numbers or anything. You more want to just mention that you have a skill and elaborate on either why you have that skill or how you got that skill. So you're kind of creating your own metrics in accordance to your personality, if that makes sense. So what you really want to just be doing is showing you have passion, but you have passion for a skill or two, or an arena of work. Like, I'm really passionate about VFX work, you know what I mean? And here's how I got into it, and here's kind of something that I've done with that. And that becomes how you talk about it in a cover letter, because specific metrics are going to be more in your resume, or at least granular skills and qualifications. So here you're just kind of, you're more bouncing your personality off of a specific one or two of those that you've kind of already set yourself up for in your resume, if that makes sense. Let's see. Gripe says, I got a bit confused about the casual or corporate speaking. Which one should I use, or should it be a balance? So, resume is going to be very short and concise, kind of robotic, and always professional and corporate. And cover letter is going to be more casual. But the reason I keep kind of bouncing back and forth is because you don't want to be casual to the point where you're like, hey, fuck it, man. Like, the industry's whatever, but I bring the sauce. Like, don't do that. But you also don't want to be like, yes, when we were in the catered meeting and we were talking about moving at scale. We don't don't sound like a CEO. Sound like you. And the unfortunate part of this conversation is you differs from person to person. So you really want to kind of just get a bit of your honest personality and enthusiasm in there. That's going to look different person to person. Some people will naturally sound more corporate than others. When I talk, I go either really, really casual or weirdly corporate because I've worked in leadership a lot. So if I'm doing a cover letter, I'm going to try and talk a little bit more like I'm talking now, where I'd be like, man, I've been in games. Don't say man, but I start out with the thought of, I've been in games for so long because I've been playing them since I was a young child. And I used to focus on one genre than another and realize I had appreciation for all of them, and that translated into my work, and then, kind of elaborate on a skill that delved out of that and so on. You don't want to be robotic. That's really the main thing. If you feel you lean towards a little bit more corporate, just make sure it sounds fun and not too stiff. You want somebody to read this to not get the impression that you're like, I am applying for job, give me job good. You want to be like, oh, dude, I'm into this job. I'm into the work that I do. And that's what you're trying to impart, which is really silly because a lot of the times the people who hire you will be the same people who would be like, man, I would never, go over the top like that. And then they look at cover letters and they're like, this person wasn't over the top enough. So, mileage varies. You're going to have to find what that balance means for you. And I definitely recommend having other people read your cover letter. And the number one thing you should ask is, does it sound natural? And after that, be like, does it have a purpose, right? Bucky says, so you mentioned the cover letter, but you make it sound like it should be one page. However, the volume of content needed to be in the letter makes it seem to be multiple pages. I mentioned that a good length is one page, 3 to 4 paragraphs, whatever fits on one page. You can go past one page, but generally you're not going to want to. At that point, you're going to have to start justifying everyone's time a lot more if you're in 2 pages, or old gods forbid 3 pages or 4 pages. You really just want to keep it a few paragraphs. General average I see is 3 to 4, and keep it on one page. Likewise, is it fine if the cover letter is longer than the resume? Example, the resume is 1 page and the cover letter is 2 pages. If you have a short resume of 1 page, don't do a 2-page cover letter. Don't do it. You're not going to make up for the lack of skills shown on the resume, or experience on the resume rather, with a extended edition DLC cover letter. You know what I'm saying? So keep it to 1 page. Honestly, your general should just keep it to 1 page no matter what. I'm sure someone somewhere will be like, I disagree, but honestly, just keep it to 1 page if you can. Leaving time for if anyone else has any questions before we move on. Don't forget to sign my guest book while you're here. Full like screenplay. Yeah, exactly what I've seen and exactly what not to do. And again, especially if you're going for an art job or whatever, nobody's expecting Shakespeare. It really, like I said, it's more, are you showing your passion? Does the passion feel genuine? Do you seem like you enjoy the work? Can you contextualize it? Because again, there's going to be an anecdote or a story or anything like that you can't get in your resume, because your resume is going to be like, managed a team of 12 people, worked with producers to keep everything on schedule. Blah, blah. But in your cover letter, you can be like, I love working with people, and managing a team helps me not only make them better at their job, but helps me learn how to be better at my job and enriches the entire experience of working in game dev. It's the beating heart of game dev and something that I've been passionate about for years, like that, right? That kind of thing. Don't make your cover letter sound like it was written. Yeah. Also, don't write it with with AI. I swear to everything. If you're using Gen AI on your cover letter, like fucking leave this talk. You're in the wrong talk. Um. Okay. I think we're ready to move on. I'm assuming. Can give it another moment, and then we'll move on to chapter 4. All right. We're moving on.